Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we've got a fun episode, as always, for you here on VCTV. As today, we're going to be breaking down early stage venture capital, both from an investor standpoint and also an investor's view, getting into the mind of an investor and what entrepreneurs should ready themselves and prepare themselves for when going out to fundraise and building a business as well. And it doesn't matter where you are.
Uh,
Before we introduce today's guest host, I do want to give a
hey,
big
Kyle, we lost you. You
I,
froze.
thank you, Gary. Before we introduce today's guest host, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Hasmik and Maria for making today's episode of VCTV possible. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Gary Fowler, a little introduction and a little background for everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. It's great to be here with some familiar faces. My name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I love artificial intelligence and quantum computing. I've done 17 companies. I was on the original management team at Click Software, sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai. I'm the co-founder of that. It's one of the top AI HR tech companies, a billion-dollar company today that I co-founded 5 years ago. Almost, wow, amazing. Almost to the day. I am the CEO, president, and co-founder of Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studios. In fact, today we're in Nigeria. My partner's in Nigeria, meeting with the ecosystem in Africa, particularly Nigeria today. We believe intellectual capacity is evenly distributed, but opportunities aren't. Our job is to go out there and find those diamonds and bring them out to the worldwide market to make the world a better place.
Absolutely love it. Next up, Gary, or excuse me, Garrett. A little intro, a little background for everybody, please.
Sure. I've been doing venture capital for, almost 20 years now. Also public investment, but when I take outside money, it's just for venture capital. I've done about 75 or 80 deals. Results are very strong. And I've really started to focus in the last 5 years exclusively on what I call smart transportation. So watching the world change from internal combustion engines, whether it's vehicles, planes, trains, or ships, over to either electric or hydrogen, and all the not just the vehicles, but the infrastructure and all the support and software that's needed. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm happy to be part of this group.
Wonderful. Thank you. VJ, welcome to the show as well. It's a pleasure to have you. A little introduction and background for the audience.
Sure, Kyle. Great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And I couldn't help myself laughing when with the introductions earlier. But I'm actually based here in Abu Dhabi, and I'm in venture capital with Techstars. I'm the MD here. I've been a serial entrepreneur. I had 4 startups myself. I've been a serial entrepreneur the last 25 years, been in venture capital for 20 years. And I invest in primarily e-commerce, fintech, financial services, logistics, as well as now more increasingly to ad tech, education tech, and AR and VR. So excited to be here. Happy to share insights and learn from my fellow panelists.
Wonderful. Actually, VJ, I'm going to jump right in with you. I want to get into some of those technologies, but in terms of Abu Dhabi and what you're seeing on the ground, can you share a little bit more about the current ecosystem around early stage venture capital? I mean, for those who are not familiar with Techstars, an outstanding and phenomenal accelerator program, a global accelerator program at that, working with companies of all stages. So if you could share a little bit more about the Abu Dhabi, early stage startup scene in general, so we get a sense of what's happening over there.
Yeah, certainly. It'd be a great pleasure to do so. So I think Abu Dhabi is not typically seen as a technology or innovation hub. It's primarily known for its hydrocarbons, oil and gas, petroleum products downstream, upstream. For the most part of the economy is driven by that. But just not too long ago, the government's taken the initiative to go into transformation and attract a lot of technology companies here. So within the United Arab Emirates, there's several technology hubs being established. Now, what we're seeing is that while the tech ecosystem is pretty nascent in the Middle East and the Gulf in particular, but in the last 2 years, we've seen an incredible amount of activity taking place, particularly around early stage investments, M&A and activities, and also exit. We've just had this month Angami, which is a company that was listed on the NASDAQ. That's a homegrown Dubai-based company. And not too long ago, we had the acquisition of Amazon of Souq.com, and also then recently the acquisition of Uber of Careem at $3.2 billion. So with all this activities happening, we've seen now really month-to-month growth in venture capital across various sectors, mostly in e-commerce, financial services, logistics. There's a lot of disruption taking place because of the disparity of, the development of technology, infrastructure, and also if you think about the demographics here, being 50% of the population is below the age of 30 across the Middle East, provides a very interesting landscape for investments. So for all accounts, when you look at venture deals, right, Dubai, Abu Dhabi combined, will probably represent close to about 2/3 of all the deals taking place in the entire region. And while the deals are pretty much mostly around seed, Series A, we've also seen a lot of ecosystem enablers, like the ones that I'm affiliated with, Hub 71, which is backed by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the Abu Dhabi government, which is a Mubadala investment company, where we as Techstars have a partnership with. And the government of Abu Dhabi, for example, is attracting the likes of Techstars, which is a global accelerator, to establish platforms in which you can attract talents from all over the world to come to this part of the region, and namely to take advantage of a tax-free environment, to take advantage of a lot of incentives for housing, for talent mobility, as well as there's a lot of capital to be tapped within this region. You have the traditional family offices, but then now you have a lot of the wealth funds, which are cascading down large amount of pools of money into newly established VCs to be investing into primarily into the region, but also the rest of the world. So it is an exciting time to be here, to say at the very least.
Absolutely. We've heard from others, and thank you so much for sharing so much of that. And we've heard from others, there's a lot of activity. We've spoken about what's happening in Dubai around the many initiatives, and specifically around technologies like blockchain and digital currencies, and the projects happening in that area as well. So tons of stuff, as you said, Vijay. And I want to come right back to you in just a moment around technology. But Gary, I want to come to you next. I mean, you've been looking at all areas throughout the MENA region, as I'll just encompass it at the moment, not to take anything away from it, but just the entire region you've been looking at and heavily focused around Africa at the moment. Can you share a little bit more about what you're seeing within the region, and maybe more particularly Africa, in terms of its growth around early stage, not just venture capital, but also entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, so our premise is intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities aren't. So incredibly, we're finding companies in South Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, Nigeria, incredible companies that do have a substantial AI components. So what are we finding? We're amazed. In fact, all over the world, Kyle, whether it's Indonesia, Vietnam, Australia, of the kinds of semi-supervised, unsupervised machine learning, deep learning that's really out there. The challenge is that how to take it global. So there are some occurrences where companies do get sold to an Amazon or Facebook or Microsoft or IBM, et cetera. But the situation is identifying them early and really curating them through the process. We use Silicon Valley support because many of those companies don't have the contacts and network to be able to do that. We look at three models. We look at intergenerational teams, we look at cultural diversity, and we look at decentralization. Decentralization, because we want to get the product developed for the right price at the right time. Multicultural teams, because that really breeds a 360-degree view and a lot more diversity. And then, of course, intergenerational. It's good to have some people with gray hairs that have the connections and network to really pull it off, and especially during the digital transformation, the credibility.
You're absolutely right, and that is, we're very fortunate to have individuals like that. And I'll throw all of us in there. I've got a gray hair or two, maybe three now here. So I'll throw myself in that ringer as well. But nonetheless, I completely agree with you, Gary. And Garrett, tell us a little bit more. We were talking, pre-show about some of the activities you're doing in Europe. So moving a little bit more north and inland there. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of activities in Europe in terms of early stage venture and entrepreneurship.
We're seeing a lot of interesting technologies being developed because they're way ahead of the U.S. as far as adopting alternative fuel vehicles. Whether it's, I'm not very much into the car area, I'm more do commercial, which is trucks. Whether they're down to class 1, which is the smallest vehicles for delivery vans, et cetera, all the way up to class 8, which are the big 18-wheelers. So that area is very interested, and also the new area, the planes, the VTOLs that can take off and land in a very short space. There's hundreds of startups, and we've had 3 of them. I think it's 3 of them in the United States do SPACs. And they're now sort of public. They will be in a couple weeks or months, depending on the SEC. But in the U.S., but there's a lot of activity in those in Europe, but also in the Middle East. I've been down there 4 times. We talked a little bit about that. I've not been able to get a VC limited partnership from them. I've been down there pitching them with what I see. And I also tell them that a lot of the companies that we invest in are looking for partners to distribute their product. So it's like, if you want to invest with me, I can get this company to come down, and maybe they'll manufacture the product down in the region and put manufacturing or final manufacturing down here, and they'll hire a lot of people. They got a great product, and maybe you can get a distribution rights for all of Africa, et cetera. But I haven't yet got anybody to agree with me or to give me become an LP. And I was supposed to be down there twice last year, and obviously with what's going on, I was down there twice in 19. I was supposed to be down there every quarter in 20. And if this calms down a little bit, maybe in the second quarter or so, I'll head back down there, because I think the people in the Middle East understand that VC investing is a very good one, and we only do early stage in the sense that it's either common or preferred A, but the company has to have a product, so I can do my homework about the product. But the Middle East has a lot of capital, and they're trying to move out from hydrocarbons to other technologies, and I can very well help them as far as vehicles, delivery vehicles, all the way up to Class 8 trucks, and through the VTOLs, et cetera, the planes that can take off from Abu Dhabi and go to Bahrain or go to Saudi Arabia, and in one flight. And it's a little better than driving, and a little better than going to the airport, which most of them are pretty good over there, and sitting on the, going through security and, getting on the flight and then getting off the flight. You can just up and down, because a lot of these, the VTOLs now have about 150-mile capacity, and it's going to grow from there. So interesting area, and still trying to find the right investments. Takes a little time, but you got to do the technology investment. You got to make sure the market is growing, and do the competitive analysis of the company leadership. Check on the senior management references and the credentials, and then check out the business model. Who are their customers either are or going to be? Do they have agreements? There's a couple guys in the truck business who were saying, well, we have orders. I was like, are they firm orders? Have they put a deposit down? Well, they're sort of, no deposit. They haven't put any money down, but they've indicated they're interested in buying it when we start doing production. And I'm like, okay, well, when you start producing, we'll talk then. But right now, if you just have somebody that just called you up and said, I'm interested. I remember when I was a much younger man, before I got married, I remember talking to a bunch of young ladies. It's like, are you interested in going out Friday night? And she'd look at me and say,
Right. Well,
"Oh, I'm gonna wash my hair
yeah.
that night." I was like, okay, I'm not getting too far.
Garrett, apologies. Sorry. Yeah, just
That's
to
okay.
bring it
Sorry.
back to topic. No, it's okay. Just to bring it back to topic here. I mean, you're bringing up good points. Is that there's opportunity throughout and great opportunities within the region. And VJ, I want to bring it back to you. I mean, it's a little bit of a tee up because Techstars offers such a great ecosystem. But aside from Techstars, if someone is looking to enter into the region or looking to begin working and building a business within Abu Dhabi, raising capital from the local ecosystem, what advice would you have for them wanting to get started for the first time in the area? And again, Techstars, feel free to promote, but also what else aside from the program that you run might be some good advice for them as well?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think, true. I think the brand of Techstars to some degree helps galvanize the right people. And we have no issues scouting talent from all over the world to any destination, to any program that we have, let alone here in Abu Dhabi. But aside from that, to your point, I think increasingly one has to look at the general economic conditions that is so ripe for transformation, particularly digital transformation. You think of banking, think about the trading networks, e-commerce, logistics, deliveries, telcos, huge opportunities that's taking place. So if you are thinking of based on the UK or somewhere in the EU, looking to expand, one of the good things here is that the ecosystem is so receptive for ease of setting up businesses. I believe UAE is ranked the top 5 or 6 in the world. It's also ranked the top 5 within the safest place to do business. It's a great lifestyle location for work-life balances. There are a lot of conditions that actually are very attractive for people to come here. But understand that coming here is a marketplace which is not like any other country, in the sense that 90% of the population are made of expatriates, foreigners. They're working here for multinationals and also for companies around the world. So if you are thinking about using Abu Dhabi as a hub, or Dubai for that matter, say in financial services or for logistics, you are able to tap into the wider hinterland as far as Egypt or Pakistan on the right, to tap for talent, to tap for resources that makes it more competitive. And in terms of the growing marketplaces, if you think of Saudi Arabia, for example, I mentioned that that demographics are where the youthful populations are ready for that sort of transformation, particularly in the use of mobile phones and innovation that's taking place around gaming, entertainment. All this are seeing explosive growth in so many ways. So just know that you've got to pick your right locations, as well as the incentives that is conducive to a lot of the startups are increasingly putting Abu Dhabi onto the global map as a tech startup. I do want to add a couple other things. I think is one of the few countries which is, I think, very forward-looking, that had the Ministry of AI, Artificial Intelligence, 4 years ago. It was one of the first countries that actually had a Ministry of Future. So you think about just the leadership within this country paving the way for the next 30 years for embracing technology and innovation and disruption at a very rapid pace, is such an ideal location for a lot of startups to come here.
No, it's a very good point, and I really appreciate you sharing that as well. Just in general, I mean, it's always interesting to hear that on the ground perspective of how to get started within the region, and also share more of what's happening within a particular area. And Vijay, before we transition to over to Gary around AI, I want to come back to you. You mentioned AR, augmented reality, and was an area of focus, if I'm correct. Can you share a little bit more about what you're seeing in the early stage venture ecosystem around augmented reality? It's something that from an AR and VR perspective, we've been teased for many years, and AR, it seems like, is pushing ahead faster and more aggressively than virtual reality. We've got many more integrations, bigger companies, new projects, new opportunities that are coming up. Would you be able to share a little bit more about that area of the area with us a little bit?
Yeah, I think you're right in saying that. I think augmented reality has a lot more traction than we've seen in virtual reality. I can take two use case examples that I've recently invested in. One is a company which is based here in Dubai, which is Design Hubs, that is using AR to augment the e-commerce user experience. So think about, how could you slap on a shirt, a dress, a cap, a pair of shoes, just merely by scanning your camera onto the product, and then it becomes a wearable product in terms of augmented reality. That adoption is taking place with IKEA furniture, with a lot of the European luxury brands working with Design Hub right now. And that's taking a lot of traction. I want to add that I think, with the onslaught of the pandemic 12 months ago, that's accelerated a lot of the, adoption for AR, only because people are sitting at home with the frustration of not having to go out to the shopping malls and to actually physically buy goods and try things on. So that's really helped industries like this to evolve at a much rapid pace. A second example is education. And we all know that, again, with the frustration of sitting at home, classrooms have been shut down, and so we're driving children back to their homes on Zoom as well as on any other platforms to access education and online. I've got two old kids. One is in university, who's spent the last 12 months literally doing his senior year on Zoom calls. How sad can that be for someone who's going for higher education without being on campus? So here comes the second example of a company called Assembler, based out of Indonesia. And just this week, they've crossed a 26 million view audience for their augmented reality platform. What it does is it allows you at any age to construct projects through augmented reality. So think of dinosaurs that you can augment through the fossils of its origins, to deconstruction of any say machinery, to understand parts and pieces and processes as you will. This is a very young company which has got now about 1.5 million content. That's content that is being used over 26 million people around the world right now. And we've just had a conversation with an authority here, with Early Child Development Authority here in Abu Dhabi, which is really paving the way for the future of early child education. And we know that the current school models doesn't quite work anymore. It's just basically the school systems coming out of the industrial age. But today, with the technology that we have and the access we have from all over the world and harnessing talent, we can actually bring that to life using augmented reality. And for me, this is a very good example of what we're seeing happening here.
Thank you very much, Vijay. Gary, talk to us, anything to add on, but then also talk to us a little bit about artificial intelligence. I mean, we talk so heavily in a great way of how AI is pushing us forward, but if we take a step back, where are we at on the early stage venture side? Where is maybe the early stage money going on into around artificial intelligence from your view?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm seeing an incredible interest from family offices in AI and quantum code. It's just it's unprecedented and active. It's one thing to be asking them for money. It's another thing when they're coming after you. So I see a lot of it, and it goes back to what I've said many times: is that AI is the new electricity, and there's so much data, 40 zettabytes around us, that we're in a state of infobesity. And the way companies, the way individuals are going to survive is to be able to not only understand that data, to be able to have intelligent assistants, smart assistants, and then intelligent assistants to help us make sense of the world. So where am I seeing that? Of course, B2B. I'm seeing it across the board because AI models are transportable. It's just a matter of the training sets. So whether it's supply chain, and as we know, Kyle, the supply chain was a little screwed up during the pandemic. So we need to have better insights, better visibility inside of it. Also, from the time in agritech, from the time it's it's taken out of the field to the time it gets to the retailer's shelves and in your hands, that entire system, understanding from Internet of Things and sensors on one end to the merchandise planning on the other side and fulfillment. So it's a great opportunity, and the because the amount of data that's around us, and it's grown at 68% per year, it's really we're gonna have a challenge in the near term. The reason is we're gonna have two classes of people that don't know and people that use these intelligent assistants, this artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning to make their lives better. How is it going to affect us? Well, the early stage startups from drug discovery and modeling instead of using bench time to supply chain, as we talked about, to service chain optimization for delivery of products and services. It's literally, it's across the board. To education, to have a more hyper personalized experience, for e-commerce to be able to get the right product at the right place at the right time that you want, and more importantly, that you don't yet know that you want, but you will want it in sometime in the future. So that's where it becomes really cool. And of course, Kyle, with quantum computers coming in and the marriage between quantum and AI, it's going to change everything. When a system is 100 million times faster than a supercomputer and can do something that would take 10,000 years in 200 seconds, we're talking about, a revolution, and it's going to have a dramatic impact on our lives, space travel, I mean, you name it, and cybersecurity. Of course, with all these investments out there, we need to think about cybersecurity because we now have systems that can probe so deeply and so fast. We better think about ways that we can defend against those attacks.
Absolutely. And something we've talked a lot about here on VCTV and will continue to do so. As Gary said, it's an important piece of the conversation, but also of infrastructure and your technology stacks. Whatever you may be building, that's something you should automatically be thinking about it. Lastly, Garrett, I want to come down.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
I went over to Russia 14 years ago and I started the first accelerator there. And the reason this is important is because you got to go where places where other people aren't, where there aren't competitors, where there aren't groups, because that's where you can start to really delve in and find those diamonds in the rough. I remember when we first went over to Russia, people said, "Oh, you're going to Russia? Why would you do that?" And within less than a year, our entrepreneurs club grew from a couple to over 2,000 at the largest event, 2,000. And it really created an opportunity to be able to bridge the gap between Silicon Valley and Russia, Ukraine, Belarus. So what I suggest is those startups that are out there, I know they're there because I talk to them literally every day, as most of us do here. But it's really getting to them, identifying them, getting them to come out, and helping them to go global. That's really where the value is from this thing.
Absolutely. We're going to come back to that and one big question here in just a moment. But Garrett, talk to us a little bit about mobility and smart cities. Where is the early stage venture capital going into that particular sector from your viewpoint? And then I have one big question for everybody here in just a moment. But Garrett.
Yeah, I think that, it's very difficult for some of these guys. They've not done a venture capital or a company before. And they really have to make sure that they do their presentation correctly. So if they're looking for capital in this area or any other area, they do it correctly. So they need a project plan. They need to lay out, where are you now? We're developing the product. We have a product on the drawing board. We have one that's in the marketplace. We have a customer. You can call the customer. We need this much money to get this far. We need this much money to get to the market, et cetera, et cetera. Now, of course, the SPACs have changed all that because SPACs will buy. They have so much capital out there. They may buy companies that have 1,000 vehicles on the road, or companies that aren't going to. I know there's Lucid, which is a car company that's going to have their first car out later this year in the third or fourth quarter. Right now, who knows whether they'll make it? And they just raised a couple $1 billion, and so it's very difficult to tell people in early stage ventures and seed investments what's the best way. But you need to have a plan. You need to know how to get to market and to be able to present that plan to people so they know, who are going to be your customers, how long is it going to get you to take to market, and what is your competitive advantage? Those are the three big keys.
Couldn't agree more. And then thank you very much, Garrett. Vijay, I want to come to you real quick on accelerators. Gary mentioned he also started an accelerator. I've been a part of one. Garrett's worked with them before. From a Techstars perspective, why is an accelerator a great place for a company in the early stage, and maybe even an investor as well, to be looking at if they're either looking to, again, start a company or they're looking to start investing in early stage companies? Why Techstars? Why an accelerator?
Well, I think for any accelerator, I think the good thing is that it allows the founders to really validate a lot of the hypotheses and assumptions they have prior to going to market at scale. So a lot of the early learnings and mistakes can be identified through surrounding themselves with experts, mentors. So something that we do in our program typically is to bring no less than 100 mentors in a very short period of time, very intense. And to get that rapid fire response in terms of feedback, which helps them then to iterate very quickly rather than trying to be in the market for 3, 6, or even 9 months to kind of figure out, well, it wasn't the right strategy. So I think that's one thing. The second thing that I think from a VC's perspective is really about quality deal flows, right? So typically, like in the programs that we run at Techstars across the world, less than 2% of the application pool actually successfully get into the programs. So imagine the 98% of rejections that you get, and imagine from the VC's perspective, the 98% of investors that actually you don't need to see. So thinking about just a class of 10 that are selected out, high quality, is where VCs then can focus their time and energy and resources to, to look into much deeper those propositions. I think the third thing it also allows the accelerators to do a much better job is because if I look at it statistically, companies from Texas have 2 to 3 times more chance of survival. So if we look at the last 15 years of history where we've invested over 2,500 companies, we probably have a failure rate of maybe 12%. That's a very low number. And often you could say that's an inverse proportion to what typically happens if you had not gone through an accelerator. And then you look at the statistics around the number of companies that actually are successful in fundraising. So if I look at, say, the quality of Techstars company post-program, 50% of them will raise between $2 to $3 million as a seed round or pre-Series A. And then if you look at in terms of the total volume of money being raised, last year in 2019, I should say, the collective number of amount being raised in the United States alone is $1 billion. So the impact that we make in a very narrow choice of companies is pretty significant. So putting it very crudely, a lot of the trash that you see from startups evolving on a day-to-day basis is kind of eliminated, and the focus is really on high quality programs. Last but not least, I would say that I think a lot of accelerators now are getting a lot more specialized and getting a lot more refined in the outcomes. What I mean by that is that a lot of the accelerators are now becoming very niche in the industry focus. Just a few days back, Clubhouse announced their first accelerator to see how they can evolve in the social media platform. Texas have got about 50 programs around the world, focusing on aviation, logistics, longevity, to financial services, and even food. So what that allows is you harness the expertise and domain knowledge of different corporates and executives around the world, the best of the best, including academia and research, to come together in a very concentrated manner and work with the startups. And that nexus produces the best outcomes. I sincerely believe that. And I think that's why I think it's still very fashionable to run an accelerator business.
So it's a very, very good point. And with that, I want to come to the closing thoughts here for everybody, and then everyone can have a great weekend ahead. But on that note, what's your as your closing thought today, and then where everyone can find you, but your closing thought, what's your big piece of advice for investors looking to get into early stage, and then those companies that are building their first, or excuse me, those entrepreneurs building their first company. Garrett, let's start with you. So in your closing thoughts, piece of advice for an investor looking to make their first early stage investment, and then similarly, entrepreneurs starting their first company.
For investors looking to get into to make investments in new companies, you have to make some decision. First is, how much capital are you willing to commit to this area? The more capital, the more deals you can put in. So you want to put in, X dollars into those things. And then the second is, what area is of interest to you? So you need to know how much capital you're going to put in, what is interesting to you, and then start to use the accelerators or the internet to just find companies. I want to be in aircraft. So just Google all the companies and try to find out that way. As far as the companies, going back the other way, looking for investors, you need to use this. We've got a couple of them here, guys that can, help companies out at building their business plan, but they need to have a couple things. They need to have a business plan. They need to have their market, identified, and they have to have, who are the customers that they're going to go after, so that potential investors looking at the company can say, okay, give me your business model. What is your competitive advantage? And, who are your customers going to be? And those three things can get you started along and get you a long way.
Thank you very much, Garrett. And where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
Well, the best thing just to go LinkedIn, Garrett Van Wagener, or my website is vwcm.com. You can go on the website and see what I'm all about, and happy to talk to anybody that's interested in this area.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gary. VJ, same question. Investor, entrepreneur, where can everyone find you in Techstars to continue the conversation?
So I think for investors, I think they have to do a much better job in refining their focus. VC is not a scalable business, which means to say either you go for a few deals of large ticket size, which doesn't represent the early stage landscape. But because early stage is really small tickets and you have to get a lot of deals to get the quality ones, it's probably better to then refine your scope and focus and be a subject matter expert. And I think then align yourself with accelerators and the key nodes in the industry to be able to be efficient in sourcing is probably the best advice I could give. For the founder side, I think it takes a village to raise a family. So in this case, it takes a village to actually raise a company. And that means surrounding yourself with really high caliber mentors, advisors, to be able for you to really get the best insights, but also tap on their own personal networks to reach out to investors, to reach out to corporates who can help you to scale. Look, I think if anyone wants to reach out to me, just as Garrett said, LinkedIn is the best. It's Vijay Tirathrai, Techstars. Very easy to look for me online. But more importantly, I think I would really like to invite everyone to our demo day, which is happening in 3 weeks, April the 7th. Go on my LinkedIn. You can get a post. There's a registration link. Please come and see the high caliber companies that we have on offer and meet them on stage. That would be a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary, close us out.
Yeah, so, having gone through thousands of startups through my accelerators, one of the things that I found to be especially important today is really you need to take operational roles in those companies to be able to help guide them. Even more than being a mentor, we have mentors also, like Techstars, but we take operational roles in those companies to help guide them. So whether that's executive chairman, whatever the role is, whatever hole needs plugged. So if we look at the future, if I'm an investor out there, we know that we're inundated with data. We know there are things like self-driving cars and Industry 4.0 coming out. Data is really the key. Understanding that data, having that data in front of us so it can be used in a way that helps our company optimize and become more efficient. Our lives become more efficient is important. Moving from semi-supervised to unsupervised artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning is going to be really key. So if I'm an investor out there, look for these technologies that really are on the cutting edge, and look for those that have revenue, because it means that the probability of product market fit is a lot higher. And look for teams that are flexible, that can really look to the future. You can reach me, Gary Fowler, on LinkedIn, Facebook. I have shows, GSD Presents, Silicon Valley AI and Tech. Love to hear from you. Keep happy, keep safe, and keep smiling.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you all very much, Gary, Garrett, and VJ. Pleasure having each of you today here and sharing your thoughts and insights around early stage venture and seed investments, and also just general entrepreneurship in so many great new regions around the world as well. To our audience, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all the great comments and the questions as well, and also for joining us here on VCTV. Make sure to check us out on LATOKEN.com to hear from all of today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family. And if you'd like to be on a show like today, either as an investor or as an entrepreneur, do reach out to the team and or myself, and we will find that right spot for you. Speaking of team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Hasmik and Maria for making today's episode of VCTV possible. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me along with all of our guests everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott and on all social media platforms as well. And we're going to take a short break as we head into the weekend. But you can join us a little later today at noon Pacific on Clubhouse as we break down not only what we just talked about today, but everything that's happening in the blockchain and cryptocurrency or digital currency industries as well. So check us out on Clubhouse. Everyone have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Take care.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.